Mason Ellis stood before the wide viewport of the colony ship Horizon, staring into the endless black of space. 3 weeks had passed since the engines failed. 3 weeks of drifting without power. 3 weeks of watching supplies dwindle while hope faded like a distant star. "Captain, I need to speak with you," said Olivia Wright as she entered the bridge. Her normally neat uniform hung loose on her frame. No one had been eating well since the accident. Mason turned from the viewport. "Please tell me you have good news, communications officer." Olivia's tired face broke into a small smile. "I fixed the long-range transmitter. We can send out a distress call." For the first time in days, Mason felt something other than dread. How far will the signal reach? "Not as far as I'd like," Olivia admitted. "But it should extend to the outer colonies. If anyone is listening, they'll hear us." Mason nodded and called the senior staff to the bridge. Within minutes, they gathered around the central console. Greg Peterson, the chief engineer whose hands were permanently stained with engine grease. Samantha Nichols, the ship doctor who hadn't slept in 2 days. Alan Foster, the security chief whose watchful eyes constantly scanned for threats. And Kimberly Young, the night shift navigator who charted paths through stars. "Officer Wright has repaired the transmitter," Mason announced. "We can call for help." "About time we had some luck," Greg said, wiping his hands on a rag. "The engines are beyond repair with what we have on board. We need rescue, plain and simple." Samantha stepped forward. "Captain, we need more than rescue. We need it soon. Medical supplies are running low. Oxygen recyclers are failing. People are getting sick." "How many?" Mason asked. 12 showing signs of oxygen deprivation. More will follow if we don't get fresh air soon." Alan crossed his arms. "And the crew is getting restless. Fights broke out in the mess hall yesterday. People are scared." "Then let's give them hope," Mason said. He nodded to Olivia. "Send the message." Olivia's fingers flew across the console. She adjusted dials and typed commands. The others watched in silence. Finally, she pressed the transmit button. "This is Colony Ship Horizon. We have experienced catastrophic engine failure and are adrift at coordinates 27 Mark 42. Life support failing. 112 souls on board. Request immediate assistance. This message will repeat." The signal beamed out from the ship, racing through space at the speed of light, carrying their plea into the darkness. "Now we wait," Mason said. "Return to your duties. Keep the crew calm. Help will come." As the others left, Greg stayed behind. "Captain, there's something you should know." Mason looked at the engineer's troubled face. "What is it?" "The engine failure wasn't normal. Something caused it, something deliberate." "Sabotage? Are you sure?" Greg nodded. "The primary and backup systems failed in exactly the same way. That's not possible unless someone made it happen." Mason felt cold fear replace his brief moment of hope. "Do you know who?" "No. But whoever did it is still on board." "Tell no one," Mason ordered. "Work with Security Chief Foster quietly. Find out who did this." Miles away, beyond the reach of human sensors, the distress signal passed through an area of space that appeared empty. But it wasn't empty. Hidden behind advanced cloaking technology floated massive structures, ancient monitoring stations placed by a civilization older than human recorded history. The signal triggered silent alarms. Data flowed through alien networks. The message was analyzed, the coordinates mapped, the human language translated. In a chamber built from materials unknown to humans, tall figures gathered around a glowing orb. The orb displayed the horizon, drifting helplessly through space. "They have entered restricted space," said one figure, its voice like whispering leaves. "They are lost, not invading," replied another. "Their kind spread like a disease across the stars," said a third. "Taking worlds, mining resources, leaving waste." "They are young," argued the second. "All species make mistakes in their youth." The first figure touched the orb, zooming in on the human ship. "Their distress call offers an opportunity. We have watched them from afar for centuries. Perhaps it is time for closer study." "A test," suggested the third. "Yes," agreed the first. "A judgment." "They may not be ready," warned the second. "That is what we shall determine," said the first. "Prepare a vessel. We will answer their call, but not as rescuers. The figures dispersed, their decision made, deep within their hidden world, a ship unlike any human craft prepared for departure. Its mission was not rescue but evaluation. The humans had unknowingly summoned the arbiters, ancient judges of emerging civilizations. Back on the horizon, Samantha worked tirelessly in the medical bay. 5 more crew members had reported breathing problems. She administered what little oxygen they could spare and prayed for rescue. In engineering, Greg and his assistant Tina Dawson dismantled engine components, searching for evidence of tampering. They worked in whispers, aware that the saboteur might be watching. Alan Foster reviewed security footage in his small office. He looked for unusual behavior, for someone acting out of character or accessing restricted areas. So far, he had found nothing. Mason sat alone in his quarters, recording a log entry. Day 23 since engine failure, distress signal sent, morale low, supplies critical. He paused, debating whether to mention the sabotage. He decided against it. Still hopeful for rescue. As night cycle began, Kimberly Young took her place at the navigation console. Most of the bridge crew had gone to their quarters to save oxygen. She alone monitored the sensors, watching for any sign of response to their call. Hours passed. Kimberly fought to stay awake. Her eyes grew heavy. A soft beep startled her. She looked down at her console. Something had appeared on the long-range sensors. At first she thought it was a glitch. The readings made no sense. The object moved too fast. Its composition unlike any registered ship. "Computer, identify approaching vessel," she said. "Unknown configuration," the computer responded. "No match in database." Kimberly hit the comm button. "Captain to the bridge. We have contact." Mason arrived minutes later, followed by Olivia and Alan. "What do we have?" Mason asked. Kimberly pointed to the screen. "It appeared suddenly, sir, moving directly toward us, not one of ours." "First contact," Olivia whispered. "We've found aliens." "Or they've found us," Alan said grimly. The object grew closer. Its shape became clearer on the sensors, unlike any human design. It seemed to flow rather than fly, changing form subtly. As it moved, "Olivia, try to hail them," Mason ordered. Olivia sent message after message but received only silence in return. The alien vessel approached the horizon, slowing as it neared. It was smaller than they expected, perhaps only large, enough for a few occupants. Its surface shimmered like water reflecting starlight. "They're scanning us," Kimberly reported. "Our systems are being accessed." Before anyone could react, the ship's computer spoke. "Incoming message." A voice filled the bridge. Not a human voice. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, resonating, in their minds more than their ears. "Humans of Vessel Horizon, we have received your distress. We approach not as saviors, but as judges. The arbiters have come. Your trial begins now." Silence fell over the bridge of the horizon. The crew stared at each other, trying to process what they had just heard. Judges, not saviors. A trial, not a rescue. What do they mean by trial? Alan whispered, his hand moving to the weapon at his side. Mason raised a hand to stop him. "Stand down, Chief Foster. We need to be careful here." He turned to Olivia. "Can you open a channel to them?" Olivia nodded and pressed several buttons on her console. "Channel open, Captain." Mason straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Mason Ellis of the colony ship Horizon. We welcome your assistance, but we don't understand what you mean by a trial. We are a peaceful vessel in distress." The reply came not through the speakers, but directly into their minds, causing several crew members to wince in pain. "Your understanding is not required for judgment to proceed. Prepare for boarding." Kimberly's console beeped urgently. "Captain, they're moving into docking position. Our airlock is activating without command. They've taken control of our systems," Greg said, entering the bridge with grease still on his face. "I can't override it." Mason made a quick decision. "Alan, assemble a security team at the main airlock. Non-threatening posture, but be prepared. Samantha, we may need medical. Olivia, record everything. Greg, see if you can regain control of our systems. The crew rushed to their tasks while Mason headed to the airlock. He arrived just as Alan positioned 6 security officers in the corridor. Weapons holstered, Mason reminded them. We don't want to appear hostile. The airlock hissed and began to cycle. Everyone tensed as the inner door slowly opened. Light spilled into the corridor. Not the harsh white light of the ship, but a soft blue glow that seemed alive. 3 figures stepped through the doorway. They were tall, at least 7 feet in height, with slender bodies covered in what looked like flowing robes that shifted color with each movement. Their skin shimmered with a subtle iridescence. Most striking were their eyes, deep pools of swirling energy that seemed to contain stars and galaxies in miniature. One of the aliens stepped forward. No mouth moved, but words formed in the minds of everyone present. We are the Arbiters. I'm Sentinel. These are Observer and Chronicler. Mason stepped forward, fighting the instinct to back away. I am Captain Ellis. Why have you called us to trial? What have we done? The alien named Sentinel tilted its head. You exist. You expand. You consume. These are not crimes yet, but potential for crime exists. We judge not what you have done, but what you may do. That doesn't seem fair, Alan said, his hand twitching near his weapon. Observer turned its galaxy eyes to Alan. The security chief suddenly groaned and fell to his knees, holding his head. Your minds are simple. Direct communication causes pain. We require an intermediary. From behind Mason, a voice spoke. I'll do it. Lieutenant Diane Palmer pushed through the gathered crew. She was young, quiet, assigned to botanical research, not someone Mason would have expected to volunteer. Lieutenant, Mason started to object, but Palmer raised her hand. It's okay, Captain. I can hear them without the pain. I've been listening since they arrived. The 3 aliens studied Palmer with interest. Chronicler moved closer to her, its glowing eyes fixed on hers. This one has capacity. She will serve. Palmer stepped between the aliens and her crewmates. They want to observe us, Captain, for 7 days. Then they'll decide if humans deserve to join some kind of interstellar community. And if they decide we don't? Mason asked. Palmer's face paled. They'll ensure the horizon and all knowledge of their existence disappears permanently. A murmur ran through the gathered crew. Mason silenced them with a look. Tell them we need help now. We're low on oxygen, food, medical supplies. We won't survive 7 days. Palmer turned to Sentinel and seemed to communicate silently. After a moment, she turned back. They'll stabilize our life support, but nothing more. The trial begins with us in crisis. They want to see how we handle hardship. Mason considered their options. With no engines, no hope of other rescue, and aliens in control of their ship, there wasn't much choice. Very well, we accept these terms. The alien called Observer raised a 7-fingered hand. Lights throughout the corridor brightened. The sound of air handlers, which had grown faint over recent days, suddenly strengthened. Life support restored to minimal function, the ship's computer announced. We will observe, Sentinel communicated, through Palmer. We will remain separate except through the intermediary. Your actions determine your future. With that, the 3 aliens turned and walked back through the airlock. The door closed behind them, but everyone knew they were still watching. Mason called an emergency meeting of all department heads. They gathered in the mess hall, speaking in hushed voices. What do we know about them? Mason asked Palmer. They're old, she said. Very old. They've been watching Earth for centuries, monitoring our development. They're part of some coalition of advanced species that governs this sector of space. Why haven't they contacted us before? Samantha asked. We weren't ready. Leaving our solar system triggered their protocols. Our distress call in their territory forced their hand. Peter Collins, the ship's science officer, leaned forward eagerly. This is incredible. Think of what we could learn from them. If they don't decide to erase us from existence, Alan muttered, still rubbing his temples. Why do they care what we do? Greg asked. We're just one species. Palmer closed her eyes, as if listening to a distant voice. They've seen species like us before, rapidly expanding, technologically developing, resource-hungry. Some became peaceful members of the galactic community. Others became destroyers of worlds. And they think we might be destroyers? Mason asked. They don't know. That's why they're testing us. Heather Rodriguez, the military liaison, spoke up for the first time. We should take their ship. Their technology could save humanity centuries of development and prove them right about us, Mason said firmly. No, we play by their rules. The rules of a game we can't win, Alan argued. We can win by being who we are at our best, Samantha countered, by showing them humanity's true nature. As they debated, the ship's lights flickered. A section of the mess hall went dark. What now? Mason asked, looking to Greg. The engineer checked his tablet. Life support is failing in C-section. They restored minimal function, but systems are still failing faster than they're being repaired. There are 20 people quartered in C-section, Samantha said. We need to move them. We're already overcrowded everywhere else, Alan pointed out. Mason stood up. We'll convert the cargo bay to temporary quarters. Samantha, coordinate the move. Greg, see what you can do to stabilize the rest of the ship. As the meeting broke up, Palmer caught Mason's arm. Captain, they're watching how we handle this. It's part of the test. I figured as much, Mason replied grimly. Tell them we'll do what we've always done. Survive. Palmer nodded. They're curious about that, about human resilience. It's something they respect. Good, Mason said, because they're about to see a lot more of it. Outside the ship, attached to the hull, the Arbiter vessel pulsed with energy. Inside, the three aliens communicated in ways no human could comprehend. They shared thoughts, observations, predictions. The trial of humanity had begun. The judgment that would follow would change the course of human history forever. If any, humans survived to record it. 3 days into the Arbiter's observation, the situation on the horizon had grown worse. More ship systems failed each day. The crew worked endless hours to keep essential functions running. Tempers flared as sleep became scarce and fear spread, like a virus. Mason walked through the crowded cargo bay where the displaced crew from C-section now lived. Children sat huddled with parents. Elderly colonists lay on makeshift beds. Their faces showed the strain of their journey. Captain, a small voice called. Mason turned to see young Ryan Lawrence, the 8-year-old son of 2 engineers. The boy was pale, his breathing shallow. Hello, Ryan. How are you feeling today? Not good, the boy admitted. My chest hurts when I breathe. Mason knelt beside him and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Let me get Dr. Nichols to check on you. He tapped his communicator. Samantha, I need you in the cargo bay. Ryan Lawrence needs medical attention. On my way, came the tired reply. Mason stayed with Ryan until Samantha arrived. She scanned the boy with a medical device and frowned at the results. Oxygen deprivation developing into pneumonia, she said quietly to Mason. I need to start him on antibiotics. Do it, Mason ordered. Samantha's frown deepened. I would, but I can't. The medications are missing. Missing? What do you mean? I mean someone took them from the medical bay, along with painkillers and other critical supplies. I discovered it this morning. Mason felt cold anger build inside him. Any idea who? No, but it had to be someone with medical bay access. Find Alan. Tell him what's happening. I want those supplies found now. As Samantha left to find the security chief, Mason made his way to the bridge. Diane Palmer waited for him there, her eyes distant as she maintained her connection with the Arbiters. They know about the missing medicine, she said as soon as Mason entered. Do they know who took it? Yes, but they won't tell us. It's part of the test. Mason fought down his frustration. A child could die because of their test. They say that is the point. How we handle this crisis shows them what kind of species we are. Mason paced the bridge. Tell them this isn't fair. Tell them He was interrupted by Greg Peterson rushing onto the bridge, his face streaked with grease and worry. "Captain, I found something about the ship's AI," the engineer said. "What about it?" "Iris was compromised before we even launched. Look at this code." Greg showed Mason his tablet. Lines of programming scrolled across the screen. These commands were embedded months ago. They were designed to trigger a cascade failure once we reached deep space. So the sabotage wasn't by someone on board? No. This was planned well before launch. Someone wanted this mission to fail. Mason looked at the code, though he couldn't understand the technical details. "Can you fix it?" "I'm trying, but whoever did this was good. They buried the bad code deep." Olivia Wright entered the bridge, interrupting their conversation. "Captain, we have more problems. Environmental controls are failing in the crew quarters. Temperature is dropping fast. Move essential personnel to the mess hall," Mason ordered. "Use emergency blankets for the rest." As Olivia left to carry out his orders, Alan Foster arrived with Samantha. "Any luck finding the medicine?" Mason asked. Alan shook his head. "We've searched everywhere, nothing." "What about Ryan?" Samantha looked down. "His condition is getting worse. Without antibiotics." She didn't need to finish. They all understood. "Keep looking," Mason told Alan. "Tear this ship apart if you have to." Diane Palmer suddenly gasped. Everyone turned to her. Her eyes were wide, fixed on something only she could see. "The Arbiters want to speak with you, Captain. All three of them." "Where?" "The observation deck. Now." Mason hesitated only briefly before heading to the designated location. The observation deck was rarely used during normal operations, but its large windows made it ideal for viewing space. When he arrived, the three alien beings were already there, their forms seeming to shimmer against the backdrop of stars. Diane followed Mason into the room. "They'll speak through me," she explained. The alien called Sentinel stepped forward. Through Diane, it spoke. "Your ship faces crisis. Your people suffer. A child grows ill without medicine he needs." "Yes," Mason replied, trying to keep his anger in check. "Medicine that was stolen." "Not stolen," came the reply through Diane. "Relocated." Mason stared at the aliens. "You took it? You're making a child suffer for your test?" "We create conditions to observe response," Diane translated, her voice taking on the alien's formal tone. "The medicine exists on your ship. You must find it." "This is cruel," Mason said. "This isn't a fair test of anything except our ability to find something you've hidden." Observer moved closer, its galaxy eyes fixed on Mason. Through Diane, it spoke. "Life is not fair. Space is not fair. How species responds to unfairness reveals character." Before Mason could respond, his communicator beeped urgently. It was Tina Dawson from engineering. "Captain, we have a problem in auxiliary control. Someone's trying to override the life support systems manually." "On my way," Mason said. He looked at the Arbiters. "Your test will have to wait." He ran from the observation deck toward auxiliary control. When he arrived, he found Greg and Tina struggling with the controls while alarms blared around them. "What's happening?" Mason demanded. "Someone's trying to shut down life support to the cargo bay," Greg explained, his fingers flying over the controls. "I'm trying to block them, but they know the override codes." Mason drew his weapon. "Can you tell where they're accessing the system from?" Tina pointed to a display. "Junction box 17, near the medical bay." "Alert security," Mason ordered as he ran toward the location. He found Alan already there with 2 security officers. They surrounded the junction box where a figure worked frantically at the controls. "Step away from the panel," Alan ordered, weapon raised. The figure turned. It was Vincent Morgan, the supply manager. His eyes were wild with fear and determination. "I'm saving us," Vincent said. "Don't you see? They're not testing us, they're studying us before they destroy us. Like lab rats." "By shutting off life support to sick children?" Mason asked, stepping forward. "That's not saving anyone." "Resources are limited," Vincent insisted. "The strong should survive. That's what they want to see. Strong humans who make hard choices." You're wrong, came Diane's voice from behind them. She walked forward, her eyes glowing faintly with the alien consciousness she shared. The Arbiters don't value strength above all. They value wisdom, compassion, growth. She's lying, Vincent shouted. They're manipulating us through her. No, Mason said firmly. You're the one who's wrong, and I think you know where the missing medicine is. Vincent's face hardened. I did what was necessary. I stored it for the worthy, for after the weak are gone. Alan moved forward and took Vincent's arm. Show us where. Under guard, Vincent led them to his private quarters. Behind a loose panel in the wall, they found the missing medical supplies. Take them to Dr. Nichols immediately, Mason ordered, then put Mr. Morgan in the brig. As the security officers led Vincent away, Diane approached Mason. The Arbiters are pleased, she said quietly. They're pleased that one of my crew tried to kill others? No. They're pleased that you found another way. That you chose to search rather than sacrifice the boy. That you sought justice rather than revenge. Mason looked at her with tired eyes. Tell them their pleasure doesn't help us much. Tell them, we're still dying on this ship. They know, Diane said. But the trial isn't over yet. There are still 4 days remaining. Mason looked at the stars visible through a nearby viewport. Somewhere out there, countless other humans lived and worked, unaware that their future was being decided aboard this failing ship. 4 more days, he repeated softly. I hope we have that long. On the 5th day of the Arbiter's observation, Ryan Lawrence showed signs of recovery. The antibiotics were working. Samantha reported this good news to Mason as they stood in the medical bay. At least something is going right, Mason said, watching. The boys sleep peacefully. Captain, Olivia Wright's voice came over the communicator. I need you on the bridge immediately. Mason hurried to the bridge where Olivia sat at her communication station, her face pale with shock. What is it? Mason asked. I intercepted a coded transmission, she said. It was hidden in the background radiation, easy to miss, but it was definitely meant for someone on this ship. Who sent it? It came from Earth, from a group calling themselves the Terran Purity Front. Mason had never heard of such a group. What did it say? Olivia handed him a tablet. I decoded it. It's a message for Frank Bennett, our colonization specialist. Instructions to ensure the horizon never reaches its destination. Mason read the message, anger building with each word. The Terran Purity Front believed humanity should stay confined to the Sol system. They feared alien contact would lead to humanity's subjugation or destruction. The message confirmed that Bennett was their agent tasked with ensuring the mission failed. Where is Bennett now? Mason asked. Alan Foster checked the ship's locator system. He's in the armory, with 4 other crew members. Mason's blood ran cold. Lock down all weapons access now. Too late, Alan said. The armory's security system just went offline. Mason called a security team and headed toward the armory. When they arrived, the door was sealed from the inside. Bennett, Mason called through the intercom. I know who you are and what you're doing. Come out and we can talk. There was silence, then Bennett's calm voice replied. I'm afraid I can't do that, Captain. We have a mission to complete. Your mission is insane, Mason said. You're putting everyone on this ship at risk. Better a few hundred die here than billions die later when we attract the attention of hostile aliens. Bennett paused. Though it seems we've already done that. The Arbiters aren't hostile, Mason argued. They're judging us. Exactly. And who are they to judge humanity? We won't submit to alien authority. That's what the front fights against, Alan whispered to Mason. We can cut through the door, but it will take time. Mason nodded and continued speaking to keep Bennett distracted. How many of you are there? Enough, Bennett replied. Sleeper agents placed on key missions. The horizon was especially important to sabotage. It would venture farther than any previous colony ship. You're the one who compromised Iris, Mason realized. Yes. It should have been a clean failure, blamed on the dangers of deep space. No one would know the truth. But then those aliens arrived and complicated things. While they talked, Alan directed security personnel to begin cutting through the armory door. The process was slow, the metal thick. Diane Palmer arrived, her connection with the arbiters making her eyes shine with an inner light. She whispered to Mason, "The arbiters are watching this closely. How we handle conflict among our own kind is critical to their judgment." Mason nodded and turned back to the intercom. "Bennett, you don't need to do this. The arbiters aren't what you fear." "You're being fooled," Bennett replied. "These may seem peaceful, but others won't be. Humanity needs to develop on its own without alien influence." "That's not your decision to make for all of us," Mason said firmly. Bennett didn't respond. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the ship. "He's activated the self-destruct sequence," Greg announced, rushing up to them with a portable console. "We have 60 minutes before the ship's reactor goes critical. Can you stop it?" Mason asked. "Maybe if I can access the main computer core, but they've locked us out." Samantha approached, her medical kit in hand. "Captain, I have an idea. We don't need to fight them." "What do you mean?" "I can synthesize a sedative gas and pump it through the ventilation system into the armory. They'll fall asleep before they know what's happening. No bloodshed." Mason considered the idea. It was risky but could avoid violence. He looked at Alan, who clearly preferred a direct assault, then at Diane, who nodded slightly. "Do it," Mason ordered. While Samantha hurried to prepare the sedative, Greg worked frantically to slow the self-destruct sequence. The security team continued cutting through the door as a backup plan. Diane closed her eyes, communicating silently with the arbiters. When she opened them, she spoke quietly to Mason. "The alien called Sentinel is showing me their history. They once faced extinction when another species judged them unworthy long ago. They survived by demonstrating their ability to grow and learn from mistakes." "Are they giving us a hint?" Mason asked. "I think so. They don't expect perfection. They're looking for potential." Samantha returned with canisters of sedative gas. "Ready, Captain?" Mason nodded. "Greg, can you isolate the armory ventilation system?" "Done," Greg replied after a moment at his console. "Whenever you're ready." "Release the gas," Mason ordered. Samantha connected the canisters to the ventilation system. They waited in tense silence. After 5 minutes, there was a loud thud from inside the armory. "Someone just collapsed," Alan said, checking a thermal scanner. "The others are moving slowly. It's working." One by one, the heat signatures in the armory dropped to the floor as Bennett and his people succumbed to the sedative. Once all 5 were unconscious, Alan finished cutting through the door. The security team entered with breathing masks and secured the traitors. Greg rushed to a terminal inside. "I can stop the self-destruct, but I need Bennett's override code." Mason looked at the unconscious colonization specialist. "We'll have to wait until he wakes up. How much time do we have?" 42 minutes, Greg replied grimly. Diane suddenly stepped forward. "The arbiters can help. They've been monitoring all ship systems. They know the code." Mason hesitated only briefly. "Ask them." Diane closed her eyes again, communicating with the alien observers. After a long moment, she opened them. 9, 7 Alpha Kappa 3 1 6 Delta Omega 2. Greg entered the code. The alarms fell silent as the self-destruct sequence deactivated. "It worked," he said, relief washing over his face. Back on the bridge, Mason addressed his senior staff. "Bennett and his people are in custody. The immediate danger is past. But we still have a failing ship and 2 more days of the arbiter's observation." "What do they think of us now?" Samantha asked Diane. "They're impressed by our solution," Diane replied, "choosing a non-violent approach when violence would have been easier. It reminds them of choices they made in their own history." "So we're passing their test?" Olivia asked hopefully. "They don't think in terms of passing or failing," Diane explained. "It's more complex. They're building a complete picture of humanity through our actions." Mason looked out at the stars. 2 more days. Let's show them the best of what humans can be." On the alien vessel, the 3 arbiters communicated in their mysterious way. Through their connection with Diane, they shared glimpses of their ancient civilization with her. a species that had nearly destroyed itself before finding a better path. They saw echoes of their own past in these humans, with all their flaws and potential. The final judgment was still to come, but for the first time, the possibility of a positive verdict seemed within reach. The 7th day arrived. It was the final day of observation, the day of judgment. Mason woke early after a fitful sleep. The ship had stabilized somewhat, though many systems remained on the edge of failure. Bennett and his followers were secure, in the brig, sedated to prevent further trouble. Mason walked the corridors of the horizon, checking on his crew. Despite their ordeal, they showed remarkable spirit. Children played quiet games in the cargo bay. Engineers worked tirelessly on repairs. Medical staff tended to the sick with gentle care. Diane Palmer found him on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. "It's time," she said softly. "The arbiters wish to deliver their judgment." Mason nodded. "Where?" "They want you to come to their ship, just you and me." Mason hesitated. No human had yet set foot on the alien vessel. "Is it safe?" "Yes," Diane assured him. "Their atmosphere is compatible with ours. And this is an honor, Captain. Few species are invited aboard an arbiter vessel." Mason called his senior staff to inform them. Concern showed on every face. "You can't go alone," Alan protested. "It could be a trap." "If they wanted to harm us, they could have done it days ago," Samantha pointed out. Greg nodded. "They control half our systems already. They don't need to lure you away." "I'll go," Mason decided. "Olivia, you're in command until I return." At the airlock, Mason and Diane prepared to board the alien ship. Mason wore his formal uniform, cleaned as best as possible given their limited resources. Diane wore a simple jumpsuit, her face serene despite the importance of the moment. The airlock cycled. The inner door opened to reveal a corridor unlike anything Mason had seen before. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with soft blue energy. The floor was solid yet felt somehow responsive to each step. The air smelled faintly of ocean and ozone. They walked in silence until they reached a circular chamber. The 3 arbiters waited there, their tall forms more imposing than ever on their own ground. The chamber's walls displayed moving images of stars, planets, and galaxies, a living map of the cosmos. "Welcome to our vessel," Sentinel communicated through Diane. "Few humans will ever see what you now see." Mason bowed slightly. "We appreciate the honor." Observer moved forward. "Your 7 days are complete. We have watched. We have learned. We have judged." Chronicler joined them, completing the triangle around Mason and Diane. "Before we pronounce judgment, the intermediary must fully understand." The 3 aliens raised their hands toward Diane. Their eyes glowed brighter. Diane gasped and fell to her knees. Mason moved to help her, but she held up a hand to stop him. "It's okay," she whispered. "They're showing me everything." Diane's eyes widened. Her body trembled. Tears streamed down her face as the full consciousness of the arbiters flowed into her mind. Thousands of years of memory. Countless civilizations observed. Worlds born and died. The vast tapestry of galactic history. After several minutes, the connection eased. Diane rose shakily to her feet, her eyes now containing faint echoes of the galaxy-like appearance of the arbiter's eyes. "I understand now," she said. Her voice changed, deeper and more resonant. Mason looked between her and the aliens. "What is your judgment?" Through Diane, Sentinel spoke. "Humanity is flawed." Mason's heart sank. "But," continued Observer through Diane, "all species are flawed. Perfection is not our standard." "We judge potential," added Chronicler. "We judge direction. We judge capacity for growth." Sentinel moved closer to Mason. "Your ship faced crisis after crisis. You were tested beyond reasonable limits. In such circumstances, many species resort to violence, tyranny, sacrifice of the weak. You chose a different path," Observer noted. "When faced with sabotage, you sought justice without vengeance. When resources were scarce, you shared them. When threatened with destruction, you chose mercy over force. Not perfectly, chronicler added. Not without struggle and mistake, but the path you chose reveals your nature. The three arbiters spoke in unison through Diane, their voices blending in perfect harmony. Our judgment is rendered. Humanity is granted provisional status. What does that mean? Mason asked. Sentinel explained. We will assist your vessel. We will provide coordinates to a habitable world within reach of your damaged ship. This world exists on the boundary of what you might call neutral space, not fully within the galactic community, but not excluded. You will have opportunity to establish yourselves, Observer continued, to continue your development under distant observation. Neither embraced nor rejected, chronicler concluded. Your future actions will determine your ultimate place among the stars. The chamber's walls changed to show a star map. A single point glowed brightly. Your new destination, Sentinel indicated. A world with resources you need, climate you can thrive in. Thank you, Mason said simply. There is more, Observer added. We will repair your propulsion system sufficient for this journey. Chronicler approached Diane directly. And we leave this gift. The alien placed a small crystal device in Diane's hands. It glowed with the same energy that filled the ship. A quantum communicator, Diane explained to Mason. It will activate when humanity reaches a higher state of development, a way to contact the arbiters when we're ready. When will that be? Mason asked. The arbiters spoke as one. You will know. Mason and Diane returned to the horizon. The crew gathered in the mess hall to hear the verdict. Relief and excitement spread through the crowd as Mason explained their provisional status and new destination. Greg rushed up to Mason after the announcement. Captain, you need to see this. The engines, they're not just repaired, they're different. In engineering, Mason stared in wonder at the propulsion system. Where once stood conventional fusion engines, now pulsed technology beyond human understanding. Flowing energy similar to the Arbiter's ship connected to the Horizon's original systems. Can you operate it? Mason asked. Greg nodded hesitantly. Somehow, yes. The interface adapted to our controls. But this technology is centuries beyond us. A gift, Diane said softly. And a test. How we use it will be watched. 3 days later, the Horizon broke orbit, its new engines humming with power never before harnessed by human hands. The Arbiter vessel remained behind, a silent sentinel in the void. On the bridge, Mason gave the order to set course for their new destination. As the stars blurred with their acceleration, he turned to Diane. Do you think we'll pass their final judgment someday? Diane touched the crystal communicator she now wore around her neck. In her eyes, the faint echo of galaxies still shimmered. That's up to us, she replied. All of us. Not just this crew, but all of humanity. The Arbiters believe we have the potential for greatness, but potential is not destiny. Mason looked back at the view screen, at the stars streaking past. Then we'll have to prove them right. Behind them, unseen, the ship's communications array received one final message from the Arbiters. It displayed briefly on Diane's personal console before fading away. Judgment is never final. It is a path walked each day. We will be watching. We will be waiting. When you are ready, we will be there. The Horizon continued its journey, carrying the future of humanity toward an uncertain but hopeful destiny among the stars.